This is a really amazing experience, and I was really honored to be asked by Dr. Ryu Youngju to participate in this, because usually as a performance major, when I get up and do something, I'm putting on a show, and it's really for the public. And I called my mother and I said, I actually can talk about the behind-the-scenes mechanics, the nerdy part of my research. And she said, yes, I think this audience will actually like that. So I am really glad to have this opportunity. That said, I'm going to try to be entertaining and all of the things that I usually am known for. I'll also say to start here, if you've heard me present before, you will hear some similar things in this, but I'm always adding a new layer. I'm giving you something that I haven't said before to build on it, or otherwise to explain more about the process. Something that I've learned along the way. Today, I hope that you have at least a few takeaways. These were the ones that when I got to the end of the talk, I thought, you'll understand more about me and my history, and particularly my research with Korean song. You'll understand how a university is the perfect incubator for a research project like the one that I've been on for now, unbelievably, almost 4 years. I will present a case study to you about how to listen to art song. And I will point out how art song is a dynamic and contemporary art form that is, I would say, despite the introduction a little bit, very much alive and well today in a variety of formats. And that the tools to access this repertoire material are more available than ever. And of course, thank you so much for having me today to present. I will begin and end in my happy place of gratitude. So, people ask me, and I think it's totally fair, how did a white guy like you get interested in studying Korean art song? And the short answer is, which I'll come back to later, I'm married to a Korean, but the more long and thorough answer is that my paternal grandfather served in the Korean War. He was wounded, shot twice, and left for dead. And recently, I was looking up some more details about his story. And I found the following maps that really correspond. It's really unique. Now, these come from Wikipedia, so take that. If some people complain the maps aren't quite accurate. For the purposes of my story, it's accurate enough. The general trend is true. My grandfather landed in Busan in August 19th, 1950. August 19th, 1950. This is when the lines have come way down here, as many of you who know about this war will know. And he was sent into action 2 days later. In December 1950, by the time we've had quite a bit of pushback, he ended up in Japan, being treated for both pneumonia and frostbite. So it just sounds like a miserable frontline situation to be in. And then, on February 12th, 1951, a few days after his 20th birthday, he fell behind enemy lines near Haengsang, which is a county. This is a place I hope to visit one day just to see what it's like. But it was remarkable to me to see this map from January into February, and then this map of the counties, and understand that right there on those front lines is exactly his story. And when I was researching for this, I also found a news story in the Omaha World Herald from 2018, a soldier killed the same day. My grandfather, luckily, was wounded and returned. So this was quite a battle in that particular area. And this is something that my family always celebrated. My grandmother, as far as I still know, she's always had the Purple Heart sitting there on the mantle. So they've always celebrated this, and it's been a part of stories I was told as a young child growing up. How kind that the Korean people who nursed him back to health and helped him get back to safety were. So I want to jump into how this project began. That was a great introduction. I was trying to remember, Youngju, how we met each other, because that one got a little bit murky for me, so I'm glad you reminded me. In the summer of 2020, I received a message about the beginning of an interdisciplinary project here at the university called FEAST, And I was encouraged to brainstorm a few ideas and pitch it to them. Now, remember, this is when everything is over Zoom. You've got the headphones on. People are figuring out how that even works. And given my background, the team probably thought I was going to pitch something about video game sound, game audio. But in the back of my mind, I had been thinking about a vocal-related project, and I had been encouraged by my peers to present a little bit more vocal research in my activity. So what is Feast? Feast is a project that is for North Campus faculty to share their research and creative activity with students. And so I'm sure they were looking for something a little bit more technology, a little bit more architecture, a little bit more art and design. But when I spoke to them, I said, well, can it really reach all over the university? And their response was, yes, sure, that's great. We want to deepen the connections throughout the university anyway. So despite the fact that I was working outside the box, which is a common theme of my life, I was accepted. And the project was green-lighted. In the fall of 2020, I began interviewing some students and going through a screening process for interested people to join the team. And I always think back to this very early era. One of the students who was interested in it to speak about what the engineering side that I haven't exactly been able to capture yet, but hope to, might bring was a student who, on his resume I looked in, he had worked, as you know, Koreans have mandatory military service, and he had worked with the air defense system in Korea. And I saw that and I thought, oh, this guy's got some computer skills. This is going to be great. And when I met with him and was talking about the project, he said, do you know, and this was 3-4 years ago now, do you know I could make a computer system, an AI learning system, and if we taught it the phonetic symbols you were talking about having people learn to transcribe, and we taught it Hangul, it would be able to create your phonetics for you. It would learn, just like a human, we would have answer keys and first put it in and then build up, and eventually it would be indistinguishable. Wow, I still hope one day to have that AI transcriber to do the work because it could quickly do what it takes humans a long time to do. But for right now, he was not able to join the team, and so I have never had that, but I'm still hopeful that we will. So I began in January 2021 having 2 students who have matched with my project, and we began our Zoom meetings and identified that the first step we wanted to take was to start to understand the breadth of this. Of course, I wanted to know the depth, how much, certain songs very well, but I also wanted to get an idea of how much material is out there. And my team, like I said, was only 2 students, but UArts, who oversees Feast, has often described my team as, quote, small but mighty. And one of these beginning students was Minji Kim, who was a DMA performance student, and she helped me with score purchases online. Some of these I have here today to show you if you like to look at the end. And let me tell you, over the pandemic, it was difficult to order music internationally. It was difficult to just even sometimes ship things. So we really struggled, but with a $500 budget that I provided and some persistence, these scores arrived to me with this beautiful cat mailer in March 2021, and we immediately began to catalog them. I was also calling materials through interlibrary loan, but like I mentioned, interlibrary loan was not functioning normally at that time either. So I was really glad then that I was contacted by Yuna Sung, who I see here today, who has been so helpful for the project in so many ways. She immediately began purchasing as many scores as she could possibly find of Korean song. And it is without a doubt that the University of Michigan now has probably the leading Korean art song collection in the United States. We even have a significant amount compared with others like Seoul National collection that I've seen. So I'm really pleased about that because we are part of the interlibrary loan system, and so there's a lot of exchange possible. Thank you so much, Yuna, for that. And I also, around this same time, met Youngju Ryu, which has led to me in this very moment standing here in front of you today. So unlike the materials from Yunnan, which were purchased and put into storage, and then they couldn't access them because they were doing construction on the building, if you remember all this, these materials right here, my team was able to process immediately. So we began creating a database. Now, I remember distinctly sitting in one of the early meetings, and it's probably our third or fourth meeting, and the other student who joined the team was So-Young Lee, who is a master of information science, and she helped to create this initial database. And she said, what are we doing exactly? About 3 weeks to do, what are we making? And I said, well, I want to get things cataloged. I want to know what collection it's in. I want to know who the author is. I want to know when it was published. I want to know the title of the song, all those details. And she goes, you want a database. And she went on to help with this, and she knew terms like sanitize the data and things that mean nothing to me. But when I took this database to create the website later on, they were like, wow, your database is really pristine. And so I mentioned that because as I keep coming back to the thread of my student researchers, I want to mention that this project has worked so well in part because the things that I have been doing also work well for the students. For instance, this was So-Young Lee's final project in a class. When she used this database to prove that she knew how to organize information. So it served her and it served me. And that's the kind of connection and collaboration that you can have at a major university like this. The database contains information as you can see here. The composer, the poet, the key, the title, the tempo, the vocal range, a YouTube link to performances so you can hear it, and a listing of whether or not the material has phonetics, as well as many other columns that aren't appearing on this. So this we got created by, I would say, the summer into winter of 2021, and it was around then that I started to think about, okay, we need to make this public. I want to share this information. That's why I was doing the project anyway. And I wanted it to be something public and searchable. And meanwhile, I was having some meetings with Youngju who was saying, hey, we should do something public and show this off and get more people interested in it. And the natural thought progression there led me to a recital where we could showcase some of this music. And I see familiar faces. I'm happy that some people were actually at that 2022 event. Other people are hearing about it maybe for the first time. And we have these headshots where so many of us, I see Jack Morin is here today, so many of us look like babies in our headshots, myself included. But here's Minji Kim, who worked with the young men. I'll be talking more about him in a little bit, but he has helped me with the pronunciation in some cases, and also is going to be helping coming up. Ha-Yong Jong and Woo Sung Jong is the daegum player, and then Jack Morin, and Vince Yi, countertenor. So we had a wide variety of performers here. And for this concert, I chose a really, I thought, diverse repertoire of music. The concert in general moved chronologically, although there were some exceptions, but so that a person could hear the progression of this music through the 100-ish years that it's existed. And it had an amazing and beautiful turnout. I have published several pictures about it. I've never shown this one publicly. So I love this because you're seeing it from the audience view, which I myself never saw. We had partnering sponsors across campus, the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, the NAM Center, Arts Engine, the Alumni Center, and the museum itself. And it was a true cross-campus collaboration. And the result was a very well-attended concert. I got an email from a colleague of mine who's retiring in a few weeks, actually, after over 20 years here. And after this concert, which he attended, he wrote, "You did a great job of introducing the public to and reminding the Korean community of their great culture and heritage. Also, congratulations with having one of the largest audiences I've ever seen for a recital." And I absolutely love that. So there's a clear ability to connect, not just across campus, but with an audience as well. I was really pleased with all of that. One of my intentions with the recital was to showcase a variety of performers at various levels. On the more experienced end, that was truly a slip of the tongue, we had Dr. Vince Yee, a University of Michigan alum and my husband, who provides the continued inspiration for this process, who was one of the more celebrated performers at this concert. Dr. Yee has performed in 13 countries in major opera houses and the major stages of the world, won the Golden Mask for Best Opera Singer, and has recorded with Sony and Decca. It's always a pleasure to perform together. Here's just a little snippet of that performance. Memories. Now, on the other end of the training level and experience, career progression, whatever you want to call it, at this particular concert was Jack Boren, who's with us, I'm delighted to see today. Then a junior voice major, correct? He joined the project. The longest serving member of the team, Jack, joined the project as a sophomore in 2022 with an interest in underrepresented repertoire and, at the time, a beginning level of lyric diction and international phonetic alphabet knowledge. He was hungry to learn more about Korean and then to share his journey of studying the language as a singer with others to help them take this same leap. Now, I will admit, I was a little thinking, okay, this person does not know Korean, does not speak Korean, this is going to be a learning curve. And yet Jack is one of those people who just steps up and does 10 times what another person would do. So I was really pleased to have him as part of the project. And we began the recital with this performance. Now, that video clip went viral. It's amazing. It's powerful, right? It's amazing. And I don't mean, thank you, I don't mean a little bit viral. So over here, I have one video, and I posted these all up here so that you could still see the number of views. 4.2 thousand views, that's not bad. It's classical music, wow, I'll take it. Oh, this one over here in the upper right, 195,000 views. Oh, wait a second, down in the lower left here, 594,000 views. That's almost that's more than 500,000 views. Oh, and how about that last one, 1.7 million views. I often have said to Jack, how does it feel to have your most watched performance ever at the age of 21? Because, in the industry, millions of views for classical music is really something. And I've thought a lot about why this particular video received and gets such an emotional connection with people. And I think there are a lot of reasons, which I want to touch on a few that come to mind. One is that this is a song that is known across Korea. It's like one like I learned Yankee Doodle or something in school as an American. This is a song that Koreans know, part of their heritage. And because of that, there's this nostalgia factor that goes with it that I think really connects with people when they hear it. But I also have wondered if it wasn't the fact, when you look up other schools having a Korean art song event, it's often, here's a Korean professor, and then this, a sort of mixed studio makeup. But in this particular shot, here's two white guys up here doing Korean art song. And I think to some degree that also mattered. It was like here, this is way outside of our peninsula, and it's happening right there, right now. So I think that's an element of it too. And I have some colleagues who have really explored this idea with what they would call African diaspora song. U of M has a long legacy of supporting the study and research regarding that. My colleague Caroline Helton, who got a doctorate from U of M, and Emery Stevens, who also got a doctorate from U of M, have published about this. And this article, as you can see, is called Singing Down the Barriers, which is now a summer institute that my colleague Dr. Louise Toppin runs here every summer, encouraging singers of all racial backgrounds to perform music by African American composers. So we are fortunate on the faculty to also have, like I just mentioned, Dr. Louise Toppin. She's got to be the leading expert on African diaspora music. And this is just one of this Singing Down the Barriers is just one of the many things that she does. In the conclusion to this, Caroline and Emery are saying that studying music outside of your racial background is a way for singers to, quote, confront their own preconceptions about race and performance practice, and also to build more diverse audiences. My colleague Louise Toppin, when she's presenting, often says that people teach what they know. And so you're not going to teach Korean song if you've never encountered Korean song. You wouldn't know how. So if we're not teaching this repertoire in the university and colleges, then there is no way for it to be passed on in the same way that we teach German, French, Italian, and English. And if you think about repertoire, you think, okay, well, German, French, Italian, those all use the Latin alphabet that we're used to looking at, but opera singers also study Russian, which is in Cyrillic. So there's still something to unpack about why Hangul is not used there. I've seen the results of my work in students' work already. There are students who have performed and studied Korean art songs. They tend to do some of the ones that I did on the recital because those are the ones they know. And it's their window into the repertoire that I hope they'll continue the journey on. And something I've started to think about recently, there are some songs, when you're talking about this African diaspora music, that have texts that would not be appropriate for a person not of that descent to sing. Maybe they're too deeply about the enslaved experience or something. I mean, maybe if you came from another country where you could have slavery. But, just for many people to sing, you would not want to broach that. So I'm kind of wondering, are there Korean songs that have that same line to them? I haven't encountered them yet, but it's something that I have my antenna up for as I keep looking through the repertoire. The other thing, most of this repertoire, although Dr. Toppin is starting to spin off into some Spanish and other languages, most of this repertoire is in English, so you don't have to conquer the hurdle of a foreign language like we do with Korean art song. At this same concert event, I announced my website, which had begun and is going to get some major revamping over the summer with some new additions I'm going to speak about in a little bit. It had never occurred to me before, but the digital library team, and thank you to them for helping me to take my database and turn it into a website, the team said to me, you can make a website, but no one knows it's there. You have to tell them. And so this event was a perfect chance to say, hey, here is this stuff. And my idea with the website, which was modeled off of an idea that Louise Toppin has with her African diaspora work, is that here is all the information. I'm trying to figure out what there is. And let me see, and then let people know about that. And the website, like the database says, well, this book has IPA and phonetics and translations in it, and this one doesn't. So depending on what you need and what you're looking for, you should be able to find it. So we have a ton of things coming for this, actually, over the summer, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But what has the team been working on behind the scenes? And this is where I get to be really nerdy, because I realize that a lot of people don't know what professional opera singers look at. So there's a person, Nico Castell tenor, and he sang at the Metropolitan Opera many, many times. And toward the end of his career, he realized that there was missing material that would really help singers. Back in the olden days, you got your opera score and you got the dictionary and you looked up all the words, and you had to do this very labor-intensive process. But Nico Castell, I don't know how to get rid of that. I don't know if I can get rid of the thing at the top, sorry. But it says number 9 aria, because this is from Marriage of Figaro. And then underneath that it would say Figaro. So it's telling you this is the finale aria in the show, in the Act 1, and this character who sings it. And then what you're seeing here is the top line is a phonetic language that singers learn to read called the International Phonetic Alphabet. The next line down is the original Italian, and the third line, the bottom of these, you can see the 3 lines, is a word-for-word translation. And then when Nico decides that it's kind of confusing, he'll give you, in brackets, a more poetic explanation. This is a sort of detail that singers need in order to perform effectively. You need to know the meaning of each word as you say it. You can't just kind of have a sense of what the sentence is saying, because you might emphasize the wrong word and it doesn't make sense. And the way you want to color it and say it comes across, and the memorization is actually much easier as well, as if you really truly know what you're saying. So, looking at many models like this of Castell, well, before I show off ours, I just also want to take a little fun moment here. Now, I get that compared with Italian, Korean is even more difficult when you move it over. This is a Instagram video I saw recently from a company, Talk to Me in Korean, which I'm going to reference one of their materials, but it's a funny way to look at taking Korean and going into English.
What if English had Korean grammar?
Huh? Hey, you here what do? I some wait. You where go? I this near live. Oh yeah? When move came? Whole life here lived. Oh yeah? Next time see let's. Like. You number changed to us, right? No, same? Oh yeah? Then contact will. Yeah, contact. Right sometime eat let's. Like. Right sometime eat let's. Oh. I go gotta. Yeah, go. Yeah, go will. Yeah, will go. Yeah, again see. Yeah, carefully go. Yeah, go. Contact will. Yeah, go. Contact.
That's cute for a number of reasons, but there really is a complexity when going from Korean to English that I think maybe isn't quite the same level of difficulty, or is a higher level of difficulty than, say, French or something like that. So what my team created in response to this was, oh, it's over the beautiful logo. Well, good thing I'm going to show the logo. But I don't see where to click OK. I don't have an OK.
It's on the second screen.
OK. I always have a technology blip here.
Okay.
Oh, you found it. Oh, good. OK, great.
And then
Just click
go
play.
back to play.
Yeah, thank you. Yay! OK, yay, thank you. So we have created similar sheets. You can see over here we have the title of the poem, which is critical because you don't always say the title of the poem when you're singing, and there's nothing more embarrassing than having to announce your title of your song and realizing you've never said it before. So we have the title of the poem, the translation, and my team has decided in this case that the word for word is so complicated that they're always giving a poetic explanation. We also have who made the music and who made the poetry. And these are really beautiful. I brought several of these, which at the end, if you want to look at, I just printed out a number that we have here for people to see of different songs. And I'm really proud of that work. We have about, I think, 15 done at this point and some more on the way. And it's really amazing. I want to mention my team members. I have Shin Lee and Min Kwan, who are working on poetic translation. Actually, again, this is that cool connection I said I would keep coming back to. Min is using this as part of her Comp Lit 497 final capstone project. She's a translations minor. So students are able to come and do this work with me and then turn it into something in the same way that So-Young Lee did with the database for their own work. This semester, I also am really glad to have Chaewon. Chaewon Kim is a linguistics and studies major and also a native speaker. She double checks all of the materials at the end, and she has quite a work ethic. It kind of shows on some of the other team members, but she decided that it would be helpful to translate a web page from the National Institute of Korean Language. This is a standard pronunciation guide as described by the Ministry of Education and Human Resource. And she's done, I say, okay, what did everybody do this week? And this is 1 week for her, which is incredible. So I brought those in case anybody's interested to see. She's really helped to shape the project in just a brief moment that she's joined this term. How do we decide what songs we're working on? Well, I get emails these days that say, hey, do you have any translation materials for this song? And so I put the team onto that one. Or maybe it's a song I myself am interested in performing, and so I ask them to look at it, or I really like it and I can't find the materials. But we have an emphasis on creating materials for things that don't yet exist. So, if I already have a book with it translated and transcribed, I don't particularly need that. So one thing that I'm wanting to develop more, and my online format I think would be perfect for it, is to have little audio files that you could play line by line to hear a native speaker to say these. That is one thing that's missing from just a text-based thing. And I need some trained singers to make those, and those recordings have not proved to be easy or cheap to create. But that is something that would set it apart. Hey, and we got that thing out of the way, but I still want to point out my lovely logo. Alana Tron, who is a Bachelor of Arts in Art and Design and a Bachelor of Science in Information, has made us these beautiful logos. And I absolutely love it with the brushstroke-like look to the wording. She also has helped with website updates. Is going to be helping with that over the summer. Now, what other materials are there? There are other exceptional materials. And Moonsuk I posted that I was doing this today, and she wrote on Facebook, oh, sounds so fun. I said, oh, I'm going to mention you. Because Moonsuk has created some really amazing materials. These are actually my first vehicle into the project. She not only has made these with the Hangul, the romanization of it, the IPA, and then the translation, but she also gives a little musicological background for the songs. This is something, let me tell you, when you go down into the sources, it's all Korean. So she's taking things in Korean and making them, the stories, into English. It's a ton of work. This is something that needs to be further developed. And I cannot plug enough. She really has these 2 volumes, and they are a great way in if you're interested in this repertoire, but you're someone new. Now, her main drive is not just to get the text and translations out to people. She wants to get the scores out as well. And that's critically important, but it's really been difficult because she's published 2 volumes and has tried to publish 3 and 4 for years and has not been able to do so because there's not only the music copyright, There's also the words copyright. And sometimes tracking down who has which of those, especially with older material, is really difficult. So what Moon-suk is doing in the short term is going to try to publish all living composers so that she at least has that part settled, but it still proved so difficult that she's called me, we probably talk a couple times each year, and for 2 years has been about to publish these and they're not out yet. It's really a challenge. So, I am missing the scores, but I'm hopeful that I can get other people to find the access to these scores another way. The reason I say that is because I'm working, this is the only video game thing I will mention. The last time I was actually standing in this space I was presenting on Korean traditional music and video games, if you heard that presentation. And I'm working on a book right now, Press A Flat to Play, the video game piano phenomenon. And one of the things that I have encountered with this repertoire, video game piano music, in the early days of the internet, so I'm taking you back to like the 2000s, these materials were sold in Japanese stores, but not particularly, I'm going to hope that comes back, but not particularly in English stores, American stores. And so fans online would create guides, go to this site, click this, click that, and help people to navigate it. And I actually think to look at a couple of Korean stores that have a lot of art song and say, step by step, here's how you can order, would actually solve the issue of people getting the music rather than trying to conquer all of the copyright things that has ground to such a halt. So I'm kind of using this as a model to think that there might be a different way forward with that. And there are also materials from Korea that are being created like that. The Korean Art Song International Edition has 2 volumes. This one is Al Arirang. This one is more of a variety of art songs. And they have IPA and poetic word-for-word translations in them. But there are only 2. The Korean publishers do not seem to have particularly gone out of their way to try to make the material accessible. And then many, many, many more things are just like this, where you open it up and it's just music, just like you would with maybe a Schubert book or something. There's not any explanation about the text or anything. So I have a variety. Oh, this one. People just mail me scores. This is my family members made these art songs. Will you put it in your database? So I get that kind of thing too. There's a little note in that I want to make sure stays. But I brought a variety of materials for people to take a look at. And then there are great materials. Remember I played you that video of Talk to Me in Korean. How to sound like a native Korean speaker. Now, this is a great book. There's not a lot of stuff on Korean diction. There are some dissertations, but they are, maybe they have a little preface, basically 6 or 7 pages on Korean song diction. You really can't get to the whole meat of the situation through that. It doesn't feel very complete. Probably the guide in the beginning of Moon-suk Park's book that I showed is the most complete. But this book has a lot of examples where they're showing the single, like ga versus ga and things like that. Now, I just did the one trick though. These things are for spoken, these are for speakers, not singers. So take a look here at this. I mean, there's all kinds of great stuff on the internet that you can hear. Listen to this.
가, 카, 까.
And think about his pitch.
다, 타, 따. 파, 파, 빠. 사, 싸. 자, 차, 짜.
Now, that's great, but the pitch in a song is dictated. So I can't do all of that stuff, and it's not useful for me to play a demo that has so much variety for a singer. So I'm going to try to conquer that this summer. I'm joined by a new partner on the team, Mie Nam, who teaches at Eastern Michigan just down the road. And also Youngmin Kim is coming in from Chicago, who's a long-term collaborator on the project. And we have a recording scheduled in early May. 3 days. We're going to record on day 1 a roundtable on Korean diction. So we'll talk through the alphabet with special focus on letters that are difficult, sounds that are difficult for English speakers. And they have both taught Korean art song to some of their students and have sung themselves. So they're well acquainted with the ideas that go with the singer. And then I will put a camera very close up, 2 directions on their mouth, and record them speaking through the alphabet, but at a fixed pitch. So you don't have the sort of things we were just hearing in that video, which they have the control over their voice to do. So we'll get very explicit materials that are really good. And then another thing that I realized doesn't exist, you can go online and you can watch Pavarotti teach a masterclass at Juilliard on opera arias, and you can watch Thomas Hampson teach on German lieder, but there is no material about Korean song in a masterclass setting. And particularly with diction, Jack is going to, and a new student, Lauren, to the team, both baritones, are going to sing, and young men and Mie will work with them on their pronunciation. And what I'm thinking will emerge from that is something really helpful where you hear the common things that English speakers have trouble with, and here are ways that we have found that are efficient to solve it. There's nothing like that. It's kind of hard to believe. And I think that material is going to really help as well. You'll see techniques, that work, and hear them or not hear them work in real time. And this event is not going to be like, here is how Korean diction works, because Koreans don't agree about that. Some think, oh, you should sing by these old rules, and somebody else says, oh no, I think you should sing the way they speak on broadcast. There's disagreement, but I'm trying to capture a moment in time and start the conversation in a way that doesn't exist yet. So I'm really happy to have them because, as we were hearing that other example, when you have those double sounds, you read online, okay, a double sound, maybe it goes up in pitch in Korean, but we cannot, we have to have control over the pitch. So they're going to really be helpful. Then on Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we will record some different pieces, just a few, that we have worked on in the masterclass. Now, Jack and I, in those millions of views that we got, went through hundreds, probably thousands of YouTube comments. And sometimes in the comments, people would say, I wish you would sing this certain song. And we kept a list. And so I said to Jack, which ones interest you? And we decided that those old nostalgic ones were probably a little bit more friendly for people than the new. And my new team member, Lauren, will also sing his first Korean song. And I couldn't help but to think, the first Korean song for his first Korean song by Nan Pa Hong. So, and then Jack and Hai Young's just sprung the idea of singing a duet onto me as part of this. Okay, fine. We'll work it in. And now I want to turn a little bit of attention to the duet because the other songs I know and have studied before, but this incense was new to me. And this leads me to what is a little bit of an exercise that sort of eventually I think will leave us in a little bit of an open-ended, thoughtful way, I hope. So I'm teaching a class right now which I created 10 years ago, it's hard to believe, with Yopi Prinz, English professor, comparative literature, and it's Engaging Performance is the name of it. And it's basically a live performance appreciation class. So we go to music, we go to theater, we go to dance, all throughout the semester that happen at UMS. And one thing I have really encountered with the students is, I know I'm a classical music nerd, but I said we went to hear the Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto. Did anybody go in here to that a few weeks back? It was a Korean 19-year-old pianist who played it. I can't think of his name right this sec, but yes, Yoon Chan Lim, right? Yes. Thank you. And I said to the class, who knows what a piano concerto is? Not a hand. They never heard one. They'd never been to a symphony. And one of the students said, which I love this, I feel there's a little distance when I'm listening to classical music. I don't think I belong. And I thought, wow. And one of the exercises Yopi likes to do with a different class she teaches on great performances is to read Aaron Copland, How to Listen to Music, as if there's such a thing, how to listen to music. Hello, you just listen, right? But that really unlocks things for the students. So I want to try a little bit of an activity with that with you right now and with anybody watching, because if you feel like this Korean song repertoire, because of the language or because of the way it sounds or something like that, is not for you, I would ask that you give it a chance. And I'm going to walk you through a case study. So this is literally how I got to know incense that Jack is wanting to record in just a few weeks. Now, the first thing I want to say before the next slide is that, think about this. Concrete music, meaning like Beethoven's third, Beethoven's just writing to write. But as soon as we have song, we have text. And that text gives the music specificity that doesn't exist when you just have this absolute music. I might have said concrete. I wanted to say absolute there. So I pulled up what one of the leading scholars and pianists, Graham Johnson, is a British version of me and has published on Spanish song, French song, German song, English song, so much, and he's also a prolific writer. And I took a little bit from his introduction, which I'm just going to read because I think he says it so well. He has, first of all, a quibble with the name art song. He says it's prissy right before this, but I'll leave that for another discussion. I don't know that art song's the best term for what I'm talking about either. But here he's focusing on what makes it unique and how to think about it and listen to it. Art song, in this case is his direct quote, is something to delight the ear, just as wine delights the palate and beauty the eye. But because it engages both head and heart, it also brings a deep and lasting satisfaction. Like a long-term romance between two people, a melody is judged by the success and maturity of the relationship which sustains it. When we approach the lyric and the music which has been grafted onto it, we may marvel at the separate skills of both poet and composer, but it is the reaction between the two which will make the sparks fly. A fusion which has produced countless moments of incandescent magic. Now that's about what is different about art song, and here he goes on to say a little bit about how to listen to it. The music can be enjoyed and savored on the most uncomplicated of levels, as a pretty tune, as a vehicle for a lovely voice, and so on. But if we wish to know why a composer produced this music for that verbal phrase, we have to work a little harder. It is worth it to understand how a song can seem to burst into flame and rocket into immortality. This is my underlining. The best place to start is with the poems. While listening to the music, the recently converted enthusiast is encouraged to follow the translations printed in this book, in the case of the French book. The balance between composer and poet is of crucial importance, as is the balance between singer and pianist once the work has left the drawing board and entered the concert hall. Because each poem is different, each musical work, obeying the direction of the text, cannot help but be different also. A one-off time capsule containing layer and layer of background, where the double parentage of composer and poet creates a fascinating web of cultural genealogy. Graham is good with words, let's just say that. But I think that is very great. So, first of all, if you're going to listen to a Korean song, you need to decide what song. What song will I listen to? There are links in my database. Just go in there and it'll bring up a song of the day, and you just click it and give it a listen. If you start doing that often, YouTube, you know how the algorithm works, it'll start to suggest more and more for you to hear. You can find certain singers you like, you can find certain channels that specialize in it, and pursue it that way. In this case, Jack and Ha-Young had come to me with the fact, we want to sing this song. So I began a Google search, which is also a great way to start, using the title of this piece and the composer in Korean, which led me to performances of it. Now, in YouTube descriptions, one singer I found had pasted the text, which was really great. And if you're looking for the text, sometimes you can put in just the first line or so, and some fan in some web page has typed out the text. It's common, but you don't always find it. Sometimes you may have to type it in the first lines yourself, and it will often come up. Sometimes people have translated it. There are such fans of this material, they've created their own. But in this case, there was none. So what did I do? I put it into Google Translate. Is that the best ever? No, especially not with poetry. In fact, there was a button that said, literal or poetic or something like that, and I clicked it, and it took me to a pay someone to do that site. So Google knows that it's not the best. And yet it's okay for what we're going to be doing here. It gives you an idea, at least. Now, there are repositories of text with translations, particularly for German and French works. For instance, leader.net that singers know about. I'm not sure if we should try to get Korean text into that database or make our own database that has the text. There's some copyright issues there. A lot of the Lieder and French Mélodies are much older and out of copyright versus the more recent Korean ones. So take a minute maybe to read this, and then we're going to listen to it. And maybe for some of you, you're even able to compare how you think Google did with the translation. So I would love to, at the end of this, talk with anybody who has an idea about what this means for you or something like that. It's beautiful. So the next step for me, and I think for everybody, is listening. So you've got that translation, hopefully in your mind, but you could find it on the internet and follow along with it. And in this case of this song, there are a ton of recordings possible. I made a montage here of 5 different performances. And forgive me, the one little blip is, people sang it in different keys. So sometimes when I'm going from one to the next, it's not quite as smooth. But it is the whole song played among these 5 performances. And I wanted to do that to highlight how differently Korean song can be performed and presented these days. I was searching for a duet version with violin because that's what Jack and Ha-young want to perform. I also found a YouTube tenor who has, quote, a desire to sing and celebrate nature. And then I found operatic star Hye-sung Park, who has performed many times at the Metropolitan Opera. And she's presenting it in 2020, singing to a pre-recorded accompaniment in her apartment. And in the comments, she says, "I miss you, Mom." That's one of her. So she turned it into that sort of an experience. And then there's a solo version with a solo singing version, so no duet, but we still have piano and violin. And then there's a solo singing version with just piano, no violin at all, for low male voice at a popular event. And I contend that the song preserves and does so well in each of these settings. So as you listen here, think about the Johnson text we were just talking about. Are you thinking about the beauty of the voice? Are you thinking about the beauty of the melody? Are you thinking about the text? Or that sort of ultimate connection of the text and music coming together as one, each amazing on their own, but to give rise to something even more because of the way it's set?
당신이 그리워 이 밤 지샐 때 묵향이 내 마음
Music has such a power. It's part of the reason I studied it. I'm not a guy who cries a lot, but it is one of those things that can just, get into me. And I think that that song survives very well in each of those contexts and has such a beauty of language and expression and diction. And each of those really demonstrate how the words and the music come together to be more than they were alone. That piece is written by a 45-year-old composer. So this is now. This is here and now. And you can see people are doing that in a very popular style. So upcoming things about me as I'm wrapping up here. I have this recording project I just talked about of the diction materials for a summer and fall release. I'm going on a research trip to Korea in May and June. This is to examine a little bit more in detail now that I have such an understanding of what materials we have, of what they have in terms of art song. Also, there's a colleague there who's working to create an app to make art song a little bit more accessible for people, Korean song, and I'm interested to see and hear her updates. And then I'm going to also be sort of doing double duty on this trip. In winter 2025, I am really excited to be co-teaching a class, K-pop and Beyond, with Youngju Ryu. And I'm going to do some research into K-pop while I'm there as well. And then longer range plans, some sort of music store purchase guide for the website like I talked about, figuring out how to make spoken recordings in a financially sensible way, perhaps an introductory diction and phonetic workbook that teaches people who know phonetics already how to get into Korean. Or maybe I'll one day get that AI transcriber that I have been hoping for since 2020. So again, I think after today, I hope you know a little bit more about me and my research, particularly Korean song. You understand why the university is the right kind of place with all of the talents to make a project like this happen. And when I plug in a new student, that takes the project in a different way. I presented a case study for how anyone can listen to an art song. Do not feel this music is inaccessible, please. And you have seen it's beautiful and dynamic in contemporary times with a wide variety of audiences. And the tools to access this are more available than ever. And finally, one more thank you for inviting me to the Youngju Ryu and the Nam Center. Thank you so much for today. I'm guessing there might be questions? Please. Maybe use for the stream.
For the Korean sounds, you use the IPA for the sure accented sound like O, like this one. And that is kind of a pale sound of A.
Right.
A, O is the pale sound. O, U is a pale sound, like yin-yang theory in Korean. And then I, U is more like a neutral. So I have an idea of a sure sound of 3, not 1. You know why? Because the triangle of the vowel sounds, real sure is in the middle, accented is a little lower, and then going up, sound, if it is not accented, should be considered sure. Also, little fourth sound E, like boy E, considered sure. Then those sounds mix together, and then we make more vowel sounds. That's my idea.
Yeah,
If you study Korean sounds, learn that way, it's a lot easier to pick up the Korean sounds clearly. O, U, I, U, and then those three sure concept of sounds combination together, like we, something like that. A lot more sounds you can create.
Thank you. I love it, and there isn't a lot of agreement among people who have published about this of what sound should be used. Some people like an open O for that particular sound you were talking about in terms of phonetics. So basically every book I have doesn't agree, and I always love speaking with you about it because first of all, you have such passion and interest in it, but secondly, you have sort of your own ideas and formulas that you think work. And like I say, I'm not trying to to make the guides, yes, we had to kind of look at what people are doing and make a choice. But like I say, I'm not trying to say this is the only way. It's just trying to get a capture of what it is. So thank you for that. I'm glad to actually have that on tape to listen back to and think more about.
So thank you. I also cried a little bit listening to Mukyang. I have a question and a request. So the question has to do with my impression, which may be one-sided, that Gagok is a little bit of a overlooked and a forgotten genre now in Korea. And I remember conversing with you about your own students from Korea who come here and they do their recital, they get their PhD in voice, and they want to do opera. And when you first approach them to do Gagok, their reaction was a little bit puzzled, to say the least. And then they rediscover the genre. So, to the extent that you're able in your work with the database, any insight about sort of why and where the art song tradition has gone and remains in Korea, and how to revitalize it, I guess, is a big question that I have. The request is, you shared a score that someone sent to you, and then you also mentioned the lots and lots of reactions and comments on 1.7 million viewed YouTube video that was generated from the recital. Just wanted to ask you to share some more stories from encounters like that were generated out of your work.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So two sort of big things. The first one talking about, I was really struck when I did my first trip to Korea and started meeting people who specialize in the repertoire. They would say, well, I haven't taught this at all until I was about to retire. And then I was like, wait, in my last few years, I want to teach a class on Korean song. And I do think it's very much overlooked in that way. And when you speak with people who are committed to the field, they will recall, in 80s, there was a half hour before the morning news where it played these songs each morning, and you could hear a broadcast. And I did have, I believe it was from Core TV, reach out to me to say how many had I recorded at this point, because he wanted to play 24 hours nonstop Korean song. And I said, well, that's not exactly what I'm working on, but maybe in a few years I could. But that obviously, he has no idea what goes into recording a song and the amount of time that it takes to do one, much less make 24 hours of nonstop content. So I think that there are some people who would be interested to see it find a little bit more place. I actually think that some of these, just YouTube personalities making some performances will actually get people more engaged, a younger audience more engaged with it. But yeah, it is for sure overlooked. And again, my mind is going back to Louise Toppin. One of the things is we have a requirement that you sing German, French, Italian, English. and maybe you can do Spanish. Maybe you can substitute one language on your recital, but it is rare, I would say, until pretty recently that students even thought if they were Chinese, hey, maybe I could do Chinese song. If they were Korean, I could do Korean song or whatever. And that's a shame. I mean, there is a little bit of a baked-in problem when your language requirements all come from Europe, even though that's the history of the field. And then the other half of your question about the comments and reception. You know, Jack, I'm thinking, and feel free to chime in, many of them had to do with how great your diction was, and to take full, to put all the chips out there, we worked together, and I corrected any blatant things, but then you also worked with young men behind the scenes, which is actually what inspired me to then make it a public thing with this masterclass in the future. Why just have that session behind closed doors? Let's show people what it's like to work on the language, because he obviously was able to help you to get to a great level. And I don't know, there are ones that, hearts all around your name and things like that. There's a wide variety of, do you want to say anything about comments you recall?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of those. Some of the ones that moved me the most were comments that this reminded me of my late father, or that this sent me back 50 years to high school choir. Just a lot of stories of how the music moved people, and an appreciation of just, as you were talking about with the art song format in general, just how beautiful the poetry is combined with the music. Yeah, a lot of very kind and incredibly moving things.
Mm-hmm. So I have to say, and this is remarkable. Now, I haven't looked at the comments in a year, but there was really nothing at all mean. And on the internet, you're always like ready, bracing for that one mean person who's just had a bad day and wants to take it out in the comments, But we really didn't. I would say the one thing that people quibbled with was Nan Pa-hong also had some time in Japan, and was that really a Korean composer? That was the one comment that then got into this side thread of arguments about whether or not he was truly a Korean composer. But it was a nice reception, I would say.
Yeah, very much so.
Oh, yay.
Particular question. And then sometimes the Korean art songs, it is not performed fully. If Bongsunga is 3 verses, even the world famous soprano, only first and second verse. And then I saw with the hand dress and then very nice setting, she only sang the 2 verses. Also sometimes 4 verses of Dongmu Sengak. I think it is by Lee Eun-sang, very important Korean poet, most important people in that area. Anyhow, only 2 verses out of 4, sometimes 3. I never heard no professional singers perform 4 verses at all. So I just, if you perform the Schubert songs, do you miss any verses? I never heard professional singers missing any Schubert songs.
Yeah, that is a really interesting question, and actually the answer is yes. Like, for instance, there might be 24 poems in a collection, but Schubert only set 20. There might be missing stanzas. That is actually quite common in song repertoire across genres, to not set the entire poem. But it's always nice then, as a researcher, to go back and look at the whole poem and get a whole sense of the whole thing. So, and also remember, these composers and poets may never have met each other, even if they were living in the same time. They might be separated by 500 years, right? So that kind of collaboration is a really unique and interesting one.
On the list. That's why I'm saying if you perform 2 verses, I may miss it. I always thought about that. Also, sometimes Korean singers make a mistake in the real poem verse. So, for example, 어머니 마음, the mother's mind, 어머니 마음.
I don't know if I know this song. I mean, I knew what you said.
Very important song in the 1930s. Even Kim Chong-ja sing the very last verse. Hario, Hario is a questioning, 3 times questioning. Last verse she say, Haori. She's saying statement like that. No, the poem writer, Yang Ju-dong say, ask 3 times and then answer at the very last verse. So I think we must think about the real verses.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question from an online attendee.
Great.
Yeah, where do you see this project in 5 or 10 years? What would you hope can or will be the impact of this work on the University of Michigan and beyond?
I think I have already seen, like I mentioned, a little bit of that impact in seeing students just start to engage with this repertoire and hearing it performed on concerts. Jack's about to sing at least one Korean song, if not a couple, on his senior recital. How many? One. Ah, yes, which is one that he learned through the other concert. And yeah, I don't think you thought you would ever be doing that when you started. So that part is already lovely to see. I think if I had my dream version of this, eventually these sheets and things we're making, it wouldn't be like somebody has to contact me to get them. There would be some sort of portal where people could access it, despite the copyright issues and things like that. And I would have the spoken component added. And my bottom line is I just think the repertoire is so amazing, and I want people to be able to encounter it. And here are the barriers that stand in the way, and I'm chopping them down as fast, one by one as I can. So in 10 years, I think I will have conquered some of that. And what I'm learning is that there are other people working in this area, of course, and as we start to meet and combine our powers, then we're able to make more progress. So that would be what I'd say there.
We just received one more question. Will you please give a definition for Korean art song? Are the songs poems but put to music, or is it more specific? And thank you, Professor Thompson. This has been a most beautiful lecture.
Yay. Yeah. A colleague of mine says it's more easy to say what an art song is not than what it is. It's not necessarily, well, I was about to say it's not a folk tune, he would say, but I can go through some of those arirang arrangements and you would never think that was a folk tune. It's for a very advanced singer. But you've got some sort of text, does not have to be poetry. Sometimes it's prose. I guess when I say art song, I'm generally meaning that it has a written notation that is primarily in this European style. And that's not exclusive. There are art songs that particularly have, do your vibrato like this and stuff you would see in a more traditional sort of Korean piece. But it probably uses piano. It doesn't have to use piano. It could use orchestra. It might be a cappella. It's easy for me to give a lot of hedging here. But what is it exactly? It's the combination, like I was saying with the Johnson, of words and music that creates something more than either thing was by itself. It's really difficult to say exactly what it is. And when I started to think, well, is it only the Western influence? That it probably needs to have some of the Western influence in it, but there are plenty of songs that then call on Korean traditional elements as well. So it's not exclusively that either. It's this beautiful, nebulous thing that is kind of like the incense song we just listened to, and you can't quite touch it, and it's there somewhere. So that's not the best answer ever, but it's the best I can give at the moment. Thank you all so much for today. It was an honor. Thank you.